musician I'm studying is named Carlton Robeson, and he was born the 4th of August in 1819 in Oswego, Kansas, but soon moved to Chautauqua, hopefully it's pronounced by people. He came from quite a musical family, quite a musical upbringing. His mother played melodeon, and his father and uncle played the fiddle for square dances, so he kind of was already steeped in the culture of music. As a child, kind of grew up on instruments and wrote his first song by the age of 15 called Anthem on the acoustic guitar. So through his late teen years, he played around Kansas, in small-time bands. He played guitar and sang. But he made his first professional appearance in 1922 for KDAF radio station in Kansas as a whistler. He was very famous for his whistling tone. He could whistle 2 pitches at the same time, also between the 2, and I'll give you a demonstration of that later. So then he, in 1924, at the age of 34, he decided to move to New York City to try and have a stab at becoming a professional musician. And within 2 days, got a recording contract with Victor Records, playing guitar and whistling for Songbird in Georgia and whistling the blues away. I'm not sure who he was recording for, like which artist was the main featured artist of the songs. I can find it, I just didn't know. But his first big break came from the song Ain't Gonna Rain No More, which he recorded with an ex-Vaudevillian superstar called Wendell Hall, who had kind of been left out in the rain after the collapse of vaudeville, and it became a very successful hit. And cemented Carlton Robeson as the session musician for Victor Records. So he would play guitar, harp, harmonica, and backing vocals for a lot of other musicians, and that includes the fiddler in John Powell's family, Kelly Harrell, and Will Kazee. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Will Kazee. The next big chapter in Robeson's career was in May 1924, when a classical singer called Vernon Dalhart convinced Edison Records to allow him to record a country song called the record The Old 97, which he was convinced he could be able to do much better than all the other country musicians out there, and he thought he could sell lots and lots of records of. And it was kind of a fairly good success with Edison Records, but he petitioned Victor Records to allow him to do it again, which they allowed him to do with Carlton Robeson as the backing band, doing guitar, harmonica, and vocals. And to make more of an album of it, they did a B-side with a track called The Prisoner Song, which was, and that record of the old 97 and The Prisoner Song was the biggest selling country hit of that era, the first one to sell over 1 million copies, and catapulted certainly Vernon Dalhart into popularity and success. And Carlton Robeson, while not being in the main limelight as Dalhart, still gave him very good career opportunities. And after his contract ended, Victor, him, and Vernon Dalhart teamed up. So they often played a trio with Vernon singing, Robeson on guitar and doing backing vocals and harmonica, and a fiddler called Murray Kellner. So from 24 to 27 they would play original songs, and there'd be a lot of team writing between Robeson and Dalhart, and they were very successful, very famous, and kind of known with having a lot of material, like to produce a lot of songs. And their famous songs were My Blue Ridge Mountain Home, Golden Slippers, and The Letter Edged in Black. In 1927, while Robeson was on a honeymoon with his wife, Dalhart swapped out the fiddler, Murray Kellner, with a lady called Adeline Hood. And this caused a lot of tension between the two, as Robeson presented the fact that there'd been a change in the lineup without him being consulted. And at the same time, there's already tension building between the two, as Dalhart was kind of notorious for coveting royalties of particular songs, famous songs, and Robeson had the impression that Dalhart was taking all the royalties for a lot of songs which Robeson had himself written for Dalhart, but nevertheless there was still professional etiquette to consider, and there was already tension building up there. But they played for another year, between 1927 and 1928, and it was quite a successful year. They produced a lot of hit records, but they ended up splitting when Dalhart signed a contract with Columbia Records, which Robeson thought was a very bad contract, as it was an exclusive contract, and left the band over it. So in 1928, he did a lot of work with the Crow brothers, and that's Phil and Frank Crow, and you may recognize one of them as Frank Luther Crow. Does anyone recognize that name? He's a famous songwriter of that era.
Frank Luther.
Yeah,
Frank Luther.
Yeah, but his surname was Crow, part of the Crow brothers, and he went by Frank Luther, sorry. And those two are the main songwriters of the group, but their brother Phil was also in the group. And this went until about 1932, until he formed a new band called the Buckaroos, which later turned into the Pioneers, which consisted of John and Bill Mitchell, who were also ex-Vaudevillian banjo stars. They played a lot of strumming, long neck banjo, and had a very famous repertoire of songs, which kind of everyone just loved hearing, but not enough to quite get their own solo career. But they teamed up with Robeson along with Pearl Pickens, and one of the first major country bands to tour the British Isles in 1932, and went to England, Scotland, and Ireland. And their most prominent concerts were in the Berkeley Hotel and the Victoria Palace, and played in front of the King and Queen of England. And there's a story which his son tells of how Robeson offered the Queen a pair of cowboy boots only if she would like parade around the room and then like there and then. And it didn't say if she did or not. I'm assuming she did, because that might be awkward if they did. But he was turned down. But it was so successful, the 4-week tour turned into a year-long tour, and there's lots of recording and touring around the UK, and came back in 1936 and 1939. And they're very successful in the UK. I have a quote here. It's not from a esteemed journalist. This is just from someone who went and saw one of their shows, and this is what they say. They are 4 of the most popular people in London. Carson Robeson is the top one. Then came John and Bill Mitchell, who play banjos like angels. And then Pearl Pickens, who sings most charmingly, wrote the London Bystander, August 32. They wrote out a video. Of them playing. I think this is on a tour boat, cruise boat going around the Thames. And this is
See that boat a-comin' round the bend. I'm diving New Orleans tonight. Here I stand with a ticket in my hand. I'm diving New Orleans tonight. Get out of my way, I can't get laid. I gotta beat up.
Where's the volume? Did you say volume?
It's on the screen on the left. On the screen itself, on the face of the screen down the bottom right. Yeah. There you go.
Down tonight, like Ellen Roll.
That's the music itself.
Get out of my way, I can't
same thing. That's what this is in 1936. But it's a touring equivalent. I think this is a film. That's just to give you an idea. The second one, just to give you an idea of this thing. So the 30s and 40s, I'm sort of slow down in the career of Carlson Robeson, which is not to be surprised, I suppose. In the 40s and 50s, he formed a group called the Pleasant Valley Boys, and they mainly did square dance tunes, recordings. Although he did write a few popular songs. And in 47, he signed a long-term contract, exclusive contract with MGM, and wrote his most famous hit, Life Gets Teacher Stone Fit, in 1948. Which I just
The sun comes up and the sun goes down. The hands on the clock keep going around. I just get up and it's time to lay down. Life gets tedious, don't it? My shoe's untied, but I don't care. I ain't figuring on going nowhere. I'd have to wash and comb my hair. That's just wasted effort.
So yeah, the whole song goes on for 15 of how lazy he is. That's a fairly cover song. You can see Doug Wilson does it. Hank Williams Jr. There's a version of it. And this was also the first one I listened to when I listened to Carlson Robeson. I very much enjoyed it. But he does go in a very strange direction, which I suppose is not unusual during the time, but he was involved in the war effort. I actually like this thing. I'm just like,
Yikes.
I don't want to do too much of this, but he was definitely involved in writing kind of propaganda songs, which at first I thought was a bit. I was like, maybe he's like horrendous racist, but I think this is not that uncommon for people at the time.
We're gonna have to slap the dirty little Jap, and Uncle Sam's the guy who can do it. We'll skin that streak of yellow from the sneaky little fella, and he'll think a cyclone struck him when we're through it. We'll take that double crosser to the old woodshed. We'll start right on his bottom and we'll go to his head. When we get done with him, he'll wish that he was dead. We've gotta slap a dirty little Jap.
So until his death in March 24th, 1957, he wrote over 300 songs, which is obviously quite prolific as a songwriter, and was overall very successful. So the things of note around Robeson, I've been doing this. He was a bank songwriter, so that was his main thing. That's what made him famous. He would write songs for tragedies within the day or maybe the next day and have them released. And this was a very effective formula for selling music. And his formula for event writing would paint the picture of the event before it happens in a very positive way. Everyone's happy, everything's lovely. The event happens and it's the worst thing ever. And he talks about being as graphic and gruesome as possible and then end on a moral. And that's just the formula he has for writing event songs. And there are dozens and dozens of these. And I wish I had more time, so I was going to talk about his radio.
Yeah, okay.
Cliff was the radio.
All right, thanks, Ben.